The call came in just after dawn. The connection was terrible, broken by wind and static. But the panic was crystal clear. The voice was a woman. Her name was Jenna. My husband. She was crying, so hard she could barely get the words out. He's gone. We were hiking. I turned around and he was just gone. They were on an anniversary trip. 10 years. A remote cabin in the heart of the Cascade Mountains. A place to reconnect. A place to heal, she said. The search and rescue teams were dispatched within the hour. When they arrived, they found Jenna on the cabin's porch, wrapped in a blanket, shaking. Her eyes were red raw, and full in a way that spoke of a deep, profound loss. She was the perfect picture of the devastated wife. Her husband, Mark, was the man who had everything. He was a successful, charismatic developer, the kind of man who lit up a room. And Jenna, she was his quiet, artistic, adoring wife. Everyone said he was her protector. Everyone said she was his rock. But in a marriage, what everyone says is just a story. The truth is always more complicated. The search teams fanned out across the rugged terrain, looking for any sign of Mark. They were looking for a man who had taken a wrong turn, a man who had slipped, a man who was the victim of a tragic accident. They had no idea what they were really looking for. They didn't know that Jenna, she wasn't just grieving a loss. She was grieving a victory, because this anniversary trip wasn't a celebration. It was an ending, and Jenna, the quiet, adoring wife, had been planning his final goodbye for a very, very long time. To understand a plan, you have to understand the promises. Jenna and Mark, theirs was a kind of love story that felt like a movie. She was a photographer, quiet, introspective, a person who saw the world in tiny, beautiful, overlooked details. She was soft. Mark was the exact opposite. He was a force of nature, loud, ambitious, and utterly charming. He didn't just enter a room. He took it over. He was a builder in every sense of the word. They met at a gallery opening. Her gallery opening. She was standing in the corner, watching people look at her work. He walked right up to her, ignoring everyone else. You're the only real thing in this room, he'd said. He didn't just love her, he consumed her. For Jenna, who had always felt invisible, his attention was like sunlight. It was warm and it was total. He protected her. He championed her. He built her a life she'd only dreamed of. A beautiful house, financial security, a world where she, the quiet girl, was the queen. They were married on a beach in Hawaii. His vows were incredible. He promised to be her shield, her fortress, her anchor. And for the first few years, he was. But a fortress can become a prison. A shield can become a blindfold. An anchor can become a weight that drowns you. The change was so slow. Jenna almost convinced herself IT wasn't happening. It started with control, disguised as concern. I don't like that gallery owner. Honey, he's sleazy. You're too good for him. Why don't you take a break? We don't need the money. So she did. She let her contacts go. She let her studio in the city go. He built her a beautiful new one at home, where he could see her. Then IT became about her friends. Sarah is so negative. Every time you see her, you come back sad. I just want you to be happy. So she saw Sarah less and less until she didn't. Her world, which was once a wide, open landscape, was now the size of their perfect, beautiful house. And then came the lies. He'd be home late. A client dinner, he'd say. But she'd smell a perfume on his suit jacket. A sweet gardenia scent. Not hers. When she asked, he'd laugh. That big, booming laugh that charmed everyone. You're being crazy, Jen. You're paranoid. I'm working my ass off for US. Is this the thanks I get? He made her feel guilty. He made her feel unstable. And then came the bruises. It was just a shove the first time. An argument about money. He'd been drinking. He grabbed her arm. Too hard. Jenna, look what you did, he'd said, his voice suddenly cold. You made me do that. You push me. The next morning, he was a different man. He was the man she married. He was on his knees, crying. He was so sorry. It was the stress. It was the wine. It would never, ever happen again. He buried her in flowers, in apologies, in promises. And she believed him. Until it happened again. A month later. A slap. And this time, the apology was shorter. And the flowers felt cheaper. This was the real Mark. The one who owned her. The one who saw her not as a partner, but as a possession. And Jenna, the quiet, soft photographer, felt something in her break. She couldn't leave. He had all the money. He had all the power. He had spent years convincing her, and everyone they knew, that she was a fragile one, the unstable one. If she ran, he would find her. He would tell the world she was crazy, and they would believe him. She was trapped, so she did the only thing she knew how to do, the one thing that was still hers. She started to document. She couldn't tell anyone, so she told her camera. Her new art studio became a different kind of workshop. It became a forensic lab. She stopped taking pictures of landscapes and flowers. She started taking pictures of herself. Click. A small, purple, moon-shaped bruise on her wrist from where his thumb had pressed. Click. A long, red scratch down her back. Click. A handprint, blooming in dark blue and black on her upper arm. She bought a small, digital audio recorder. She'd leave it in her pocket or in the kitchen drawer when he came home late, smelling of gardenias and whiskey. She recorded the rages, the voice that the world never heard, the monster who lived behind the charming mask. You are nothing, Jenna. You are worthless. If you ever tell anyone, I will destroy you. I will bury you where no one will ever find you. She saved the files. She dated them. She printed out the bank statements, the ones that showed the client dinners that were actually hotel rooms, the ones that showed the jewelry he was buying for someone else. She gathered every lie, every bruise, every broken promise. She put all in a locked, fireproof safe. She was building a case. She told herself she was building it for her divorce. But in the darkest, most honest part of her heart, she knew what she was really doing. She was collecting the evidence for her own murder. She was just waiting. The waiting ended when he came home one night, radiating that false, dangerous charm. Jenna, baby, he said, kissing her, I've got a surprise. I booked you as a trip for our 10th anniversary. A cabin up in the Cascades. Just you and me. No phones. No distractions. A new start, just like it used to be. Jenna smiled. It was the most perfect, adoring smile. But as he held her, all she could think was, he said, he would bury me where no one will ever find me. The mountains. Remote. No phones. This wasn't an anniversary. It was a eulogy. And Jenna decided IT wasn't going to be hers. For the next 2 weeks, Jenna planned. Mark thought she was packing hiking boots and warm sweaters. But she was also packing other things. She bought a burner phone, heavy-duty garden gloves, a small, collapsible shovel, and 2 large vials of industrial-strength lye, all paid for with cash from a secret bank account she'd been siphoning grocery money into for over a year. She researched the area around the cabin, the hiking trails, the terrain. She found what she was looking for, an old, abandoned mine shaft, not on any of the tourist maps, but clearly marked on old geological surveys. A deep, dark, forgotten hole. A place where no one would ever find anything. She was no longer the soft, broken victim. She was a planner. She was a woman with a purpose. The drive up to the cabin was tense. Mark was trying. He was playing the part of the devoted husband. He held her hand. He played their wedding song. Jenna just played her part. The hopeful, nervous, loving wife. The cabin was beautiful, stunning, and completely, terrifyingly isolated, just as he'd promised. No self-service, he said, smiling. holding his phone up to the empty air. Perfect. The first night was a nightmare. He drank. The charming mask slipped. He wanted to talk about their marriage, which meant he wanted to list her failings, her distance, her moods. "I'm trying so hard here, Jenna," he said, his voice laced with that familiar, menacing edge. "And you're not even here. What's wrong with you? After all I've given you." She just nodded, apologized. "You're right. I'm sorry. I'm just tired from the drive. Tomorrow. Let's make tomorrow our day." She went to bed, and she did not sleep. She just listened to him snore. The next morning, their anniversary, she was up before him. She made him his favorite breakfast. She was the perfect wife. "I have an idea," she said, her voice bright. "I saw a path back behind the cabin. It looks rugged, an adventure. Let's go. Let's clear the air, just like we used to." He loved it. He loved rugged. He loved adventure. He loved being in charge. She packed a small backpack, water, snacks, and at the bottom, the gloves and the shovel. She led the way. She walked him for nearly 2 hours, deep into the woods, following a trail that was barely a trail at all. She was following the GPS map she downloaded to her burner phone. "Jen, where are we going?" He was starting to get annoyed. "This is a mud pit." "It's just a little farther," she said. "The view is supposed to be incredible." She led him into a small, rocky clearing. At the center of it, hidden by overgrown brush, was the dark, gaping mouth of the old mine shaft. "What is this?" he said, stepping back. "This is dangerous." "It's history," Jenna said. She was standing very calm. Her heart was a drum, but her hands were steady. He looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, he wasn't seeing his fragile, broken wife. He was seeing a stranger. "What's wrong with you?" he said, his voice dropping to that cold whisper. "You've been weird this whole trip." "I know about her, Mark," Jenna said. It was so quiet. Just 3 words. The charm was gone. Instantly. His face contorted into the mask she knew so well. The monster. What did you say?" "Gardenius. Her name is Amanda. You bought her a condo. You've been draining our accounts. You've been lying to me for 2 years." He didn't deny it. He just smiled. A slow, cold, terrifying smile. "You stupid. You think you're so smart. Huh?" He took a step toward her. "You think you're going to—" "What?" "Go home and tell everyone." "No," she said. "No, you're not," he said, moving closer. "You're not going to tell anyone. Because you're the crazy one, remember? The unstable one. I'm the one who takes care of you." He was just feet from her now. "You shouldn't have done this, Jenna," he whispered. "You have no idea what you've just done." He lunged for her. He was a big man. Strong. He thought it would be easy. He was wrong. He had spent 10 years breaking her. He didn't realize he'd been forging her. He grabbed her. She didn't fight him, not in the way he expected. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She drove the heel of her hiking boot into his knee. He roared, his grip loosening just enough. She brought her elbow up hard into his throat. He gagged, stumbling back. And as he stumbled, she put both hands on his chest and pushed. It was a single, powerful, calculated motion. He tripped over his own feet, his eyes wide with a shock that was almost comical. He didn't even have time to scream. He just disappeared into the dark. There was a sound, a few terrible, thudding sounds, and then silence. The same heavy, terrifying silence of their home. But this time, it was peaceful. Jenna stood at the edge, her chest heaving. She didn't look down. She didn't need to. She put on the gloves. She took out the lye. She poured both vials down into the darkness, to erase the one part of him that was left. She used the shovel not to dig, but to pull the brush and rocks back over the opening. She covered the mouth of the mine. She erased the grave, This was a final goodbye she had planned, a grave for his promises, a grave for the man who had buried her alive for a decade. She hiked back to the cabin. It took her an hour. She sat on the porch. She watched the sun come up. And then she found the one spot on the hill with a single, weak bar service. And she made the call. The investigation was run by a detective named Miller, a man with 25 years on the job and a deep, profound distrust of perfect stories. Jenna's story was perfect. She was the perfect grieving wife. She told him about the hike. The last time she saw him, her voice broke in all the right places. But Miller felt a chill. Her grief was clean. It was a performance. A good one, but performance nonetheless. The search teams found nothing. No broken branches. No blood. No sign of a struggle. It was as if Mark had simply evaporated. Miller started digging. Not in the mountains. He started digging into their life. And he found the cracks. He found the rumors of Mark's affairs. He found the talk among his business partners of his volatile temper. And he found Amanda, the girlfriend, the one with the gardenia perfume. She told the police tearfully that Mark was terrified of his wife, that Jenna was unstable and jealous, that he was planning to leave her, and he was afraid of what she'd do. The motive was no longer Mark's accident. It was Jenna's rage. Miller got a warrant, not for the cabin, for their home. He was looking for a diary, a journal, a confession. He tossed the house. Nothing. It was as clean as Jenna's alibi, until he got to her art studio. It was dusty, unused, but in the corner, there was a heavy, fireproof safe. It took a locksmith 2 hours to get it open. When Miller opened the door, he thought he was going to be sick. IT wasn't diary. It was a testament. Dozens of 8x10, high-resolution photographs. Jenna's face with a split lip. Jenna's arms, covered in black and purple handprints. Jenna's ribs, bruised so badly he could almost see the outline of a fist. Each one was dated, labeled, and then the USB drives. He put one into his laptop, and he heard it. He heard Mark, the voice of a monster. You are worthless. You are nothing. You try to leave me. I will kill you. I will kill you. Miller sat there in the quiet, dusty studio for a long time. He was a cop. He'd seen the worst of people. But this was something else. This wasn't a murder investigation. This was a horror story. He knew, with a certainty that chilled him to the bone, that they would never find Mark. But he also knew that Jenna was a killer. He didn't know what to do. So he arrested her. He arrested her for the murder of her husband. The trial of Jenna was a media circus. The widow of the Cascades. The prosecution painted her as a cold, methodical black widow. They had no body, but they had a powerful motive. Jealousy. Rage. And they had the evidence of the plan. The cash-bought burner phone. The lie. The shovel. This is not a woman who was a victim. The prosecutor thundered. This is a woman who was a predator. She lured her husband to a remote location, and she executed him. It was a strong case. And then the defense had its turn. They didn't call a single witness. They just presented the box. For 2 full days, the jury was shown the photographs, one by one, blown up on a giant screen. The bruises, the cuts, the handprints, the dead, terrified eyes of the woman who had taken them. The courtroom was silent. And then they played the audio. Mark's voice filled the room. The screaming, the threats, the sound of glass breaking, the sound of Jenna weeping, "Please, Mark, please stop." One of the jurors fainted. Finally, Jenna herself took the stand. She was not the grieving widow from the cabin. She was not the cold, emotionless woman at the arrest. She was quiet. She was steady. And she was done. She told them everything. The love, the control, the bruises, the lies. "The prosecution says I planned a murder," she said, her voice clear and strong. resonating to the silent room. He is wrong. I was planning my survival. For years, I collected this proof, because I knew he was going to kill me. She looked at the jury. I didn't collect that evidence for a divorce. I collected it for my own obituary. I collected it so that when he finally murdered me, someone would know that I wasn't just a clumsy, crazy, unstable woman, that I was a victim. So what happened on that mountain? Her lawyer asked gently. He told me this trip was a new start, she said. But I knew what it was. He was going to keep his promise. He was going to bury me. He told me so. And what did you do? He lunged at me, at the edge of that old mine. It was him or me. After 10 years of being buried by him, I chose me. The prosecution's cross-examination was brutal. You bought a shovel. You bought lie. You planned this. Jenna never flinched. Yes, I did. I planned. For the worst. Because for 10 years, I had been living it. I went to that mountain hoping, praying that I was wrong, that he meant it, that this was a new start. But I planned for the truth. And the truth is, he was a monster, and monsters don't change. The jury was out for 4 days. They were hopelessly deadlocked. On one side, the premeditation, the lie, the shovel. On the other, the photographs, the voice, the sheer, overwhelming proof of his evil. Finally, they came back. The courtroom held its breath. On the charge of murder in the first degree, Jenna closed her eyes. Not guilty. A gasp. On the charge of voluntary manslaughter, Jenna's eyes snapped open. Guilty. It was a compromise. They believed her fear. They believed he was a monster. But they could not ignore the shovel. They could not ignore the lie. She had a plan. And that, in the eyes of the law, was a crime. Jenna was sentenced to 10 years. Her story became a legend, a dark, twisted folktale. She was a hero to some, a cold-blooded killer to others. The case changed laws. It brought coercive control and proactive self-defense into the national conversation. Mark's family and his girlfriend, Amanda, maintained to the end that he was a victim, that the photos were faked, that the audio was edited, that he was a good man, destroyed by a brilliant, manipulative woman. Jenna served 7 years. She was a model prisoner. She was quiet. She worked in the library. She didn't cause trouble. When she was released, she disappeared. She didn't go back to her old life. She didn't go back to photography. The house was sold. The safe and its contents were sealed in an evidence vault, where they remain. There's a rumor in the small coastal towns of Oregon of a woman who runs a small plant nursery. A quiet woman with old, haunted eyes. A woman who is kind to strangers, but who never talks about her past. They say she has a gift. She can grow anything. She can take the most broken, withered, and dying plants and bring them back to life. In the end, this was a story about promises. The buried promises of a wedding day, and the dark, whispered promises of a monster. Jenna's documentation was her only power. It was her truth. It was the only thing that could save her. But what happens when documenting your own nightmare isn't enough? What happens when the only way to stop the story is to write the final chapter yourself? It makes you wonder. What is the real line between a victim and a killer? Is it the first bruise? The first lie? Or is it the moment you buy the shovel? It's a story about a woman who had to build a tomb for her husband just to finally find a life for herself, and who, in the end, had to bury her own past right alongside him.